Off the coast of the Greek island of Lefkas, former GP Clive Probert and his wife Norma are making the most of their retirement.
For 14 years we'd been living on our catamaran.
Spending our summers sailing around different parts of the world. The Caribbean, Galapagos, Tahiti, all the places you dream about, Bora Bora, amazing places.
Free and easy, you go where you want to go, you stay when you want to stay in places, and then when you choose to move, explore somewhere different.
My geography's improved enormously. You learn where, obviously where things are, and in the world you can relate to where places are.
In the last 4 or 5 years we were spending our time cruising around the Mediterranean.
An area that we knew very, very well, beautiful part of the world, having a wonderful time as usual.
We were hoping to continue to do it for another year or two, but it came to a sudden end.
38-year-old Irishman Rurari Bradley has lived in Greece for 20 years.
My wife and I own a small yacht charter company and yacht maintenance business, so we look after private yachts. And we also have a little restaurant that ties the whole thing together. The little bay where we live, Vliho, gorgeous little landlocked bay. It's always been considered a really, really safe anchorage. The quay is 25 metres in front of our restaurant, so for us it's just an ideal location.
Keep it going.
The forecast was for thunderstorms coming in from the south, and southerly winds, maybe force 5 to 6. Neither myself nor any of the team had any real concerns, if you like. It was just a thunderstorm.
The forecast was for light winds. I think it was 7 knots from the south, and so we decided that we'd move nearer to Vliho. So we moved about 400 metres off the jetty.
It was cold, so we would just read. I probably was knitting. That's my big hobby. I've knitted my way around the world.
Gin and tonic, usually about 6 o'clock. We usually have them in fairly large glasses, so it takes about an hour to sip through them when we'd sit and read. Now, normally we'd be in the cockpit, but it was quite cool that night, so we were both down below, sat in the saloon.
We were sat reading, and we have a wind generator on the back of the boat, and it suddenly started screaming.
At this stage I had no accurate idea of the wind strength, but it's windy. The visibility was dropping by the second. I haven't seen this before. Not even a hint of something like this has happened before. A freak weather event. At this stage you couldn't even see the boats on the quay 25 metres away. It's just this wall of debris and cloud and dust and rain just coming past. And I thought, whatever happens when this dies down, I'm going to be out on the water for a bit. So I ran inside and grabbed my weather gear and then just stood and waited. And I was thinking, given that the boat population of the bay had swelled all day, obviously there were people in there sheltering, so there were going to be people on boats all over the place. Be incredibly frightened, without question. It was frightening standing on the shore, never mind being on a boat.
74-year-old Clive and his 67-year-old wife Norma are in the midst of a freak storm. Wind speeds are over 100 miles per hour.
From time to time, there are crises. You do hit storms, and we had done. And so you sort of get used to these situations. If you panic, you tend to make the wrong decisions. So you sort of train yourself not to panic and try and think as clearly as you can. And I think I was probably in that mode. I was trying to think clearly, what to do.
Clive went into the cockpit to start the boat, because when your anchor is dragging, you drive towards it to minimise the drag.
Almost immediately, the boat lurched to my left.
I was up 1 step, 2 steps, and then it just flipped.
And it just flipped us over.
I have these few seconds where I don't know what happened.
As I flew across the cockpit, I saw the water rushing into the saloon and Norma being washed back down below.
I didn't know which way was up. It was just unbelievable.
This shouldn't be happening. This is a safe boat and it shouldn't do this.
I find it, even now, really hard to imagine what an air pocket is, or how I came to be in that air pocket. I found myself stood on the roof of the boat, but quite how I got there is something I'm not sure about. The water started coming up and up. I remember watching it and being very, very scared. I started to shout. I thought, I've got to let somebody know I'm here.
Help me! Help!
Then I thought about Clive. I didn't see how we could possibly be alive because the waves were huge. If something had happened to Clive, I was there and no one knew.
You can imagine now there's people trying to get on with sorting out their little piece of the mess. At this stage, the wind's dropping fairly quickly. And as our job was looking after boats that had nobody on them, that's where my focus was, that's where my head was. I really wasn't thinking about people being in actual danger. I remember looking over thinking, there's a boat that's lost its mast. Because all I could see was this sort of white hull with a dark stripe on it. And as I got closer and closer and closer, I could see it was a catamaran that was upside down. And you're like, that just doesn't happen. And then I became aware of a guy standing on the back of the boat. He was sort of standing in between the two hulls. And I asked him, was he okay? And he said, yeah. And almost as an afterthought, I said, is there anybody inside the boat? And he said, yes, my wife's inside the boat.
I tend not to get emotional about things. I've trained myself over the years to try and think very, very clearly about dealing with things. You can't switch that off. I shouted to Norma and got a response. It was quite difficult. There was still quite a bit of noise from the storm.
You've got upturned 38-foot catamaran. It's quite low in the water. The guy has told me that his wife's alive because he can hear her tapping the hull inside. So I'm going, okay, there's a bit of air in there, that's great. What's really gone through my mind is that if there's any tiny little hole, this boat's slowly going to be sinking. And so, although I had dive gear and stuff back at the yacht club, I was thinking to go back, get some diving equipment, set all that up, is going to take time. And time's the one thing we don't have. This lady inside, either she's going to be hypothermic, heart attack, or run out of air. All this flashes through your head like a script and you just go, no, we have to get her out of there.
Yacht club owner Rurari has just discovered that Clive's wife is trapped in an air pocket underneath their capsized catamaran.
I was quite surprised when Rory decided to free dive it. I thought that he would arrange for somebody to come with some scuba gear, but he was in the water before I could really discuss it with him.
So, jumped into the water, put the mask on, and had a little bit of a poke around. It's very hard to picture everything's upside down. It looks like that the cockpit area of the boat, that's going to be clear of the water, so there should be an air pocket in there. So I thought, well, that's cool. I could hold my breath for long enough to get myself down under the rail, over the deck, and into the cockpit. I could take a breather there, orientate myself, and then I knew that if I went left or right in the cabin, I'd come up into the air pocket in one of the hulls. So that was the plan as such, and the plan sort of went wrong from the beginning. I just met this wall of ropes and bent tubes and aluminium and sails and stuff. You're trying to find a gap where it's sensible to go through, you know. The whole enterprise doesn't seem very sensible in retrospect, but at the time you're thinking, A, I need a path for me to get through, and also, more importantly, I need a path to get back out again. Now, the path that I did go through was fairly comfortable, and I was feeling pretty confident when I bumped up into the cockpit. I thought, well, hey, we're here. And then I tried to take a breath, and there was no, it was flooded. There was no air whatsoever. There was no way on earth I was getting back out the way I'd come. It had taken me 40 seconds maybe to get as far as I had. The only place there's going to be air is further in. That's frightening. To realise you got yourself into a situation, and the only way you can possibly get out of it is going deeper and deeper into the situation. That was a moment where I thought, right, this is now serious. This is not... Now you've got yourself in this mess. "50 seconds in, I'm thinking, no way on earth I was going back out the way I came. Couldn't. That was one clear thought. There's no way I could get back out with the breath that I had remaining. I need to get to the next air pocket, which is further in one of the hulls. Boats are usually pretty good, they're symmetrical. But on this particular boat, the cabin entrance is offset to one side. In my disorientated, increasing panic, I didn't think of that, and so I went to the centre and didn't find a hatch. And of course, two choices, I had to go left or right. So I'm now feeling my way along the back wall of the cabin. And I get all the way out to the side of the boat, start to go back into the middle of all the debris again. I'm going, oh man. And by this stage, I'm out of air. And you're just going on instinct rather than anything else. The only thing to do is go the other way. And sure enough, my hand went into a void, pulled myself through, head first into this pair of legs.
I saw this shape in the water. A huge, huge relief. It was amazing.
Okay.
Two things. First of all, it's the nicest air I've ever breathed in my life. And secondly, I'm thinking, you know, this isn't good. This is a tiny amount of air.
I got to get out of here.
He said, we've got to swim out of here. And I thought, oh, no.
Norma said, I can't swim.
I'm of that generation that didn't really have swimming lessons. I'm never going to be very happy in the water.
And then she embellished it by saying, I'm afraid of putting my head under the water and I can't hold my breath.
He was anxious to get himself out as well as help me. He was in a very dangerous situation because he'd swum in there and he knew the difficulties that were ahead just to get us out.
I'm thinking, crap, this is all wrong. Everything about this is wrong.
I was aware that there were now two lives at stake and not just mine. And I remember thinking, you've got to do what this man says, however horrid it seems to me. So I tried to do exactly as I was told.
That was really frightening because it's one thing putting myself in that situation. I was now going to have to make the decision that she was coming out of there. And there was a real possibility that she wouldn't be able to hold her breath for long enough to get out. This is a time bomb. This thing could go whoosh at any moment. Whenever the balance between the amount of air that's in there and the amount that's needed to keep the boat afloat, whenever that balance tips a little bit, we're toast.
Rory's plan was to get out of there as quick as he could. He thought the boat was sinking.
And I said, okay, we're going to practice.
At this stage I was breathing really shallowly because I was scared, so I said to him, you'll have to give me a minute to try and calm down.
And she could hold her breath for at least 3 seconds. And then it was just, you would hear her release and then come spluttering back up to the surface.
And I thought, you've really got to do what this man says. This is your last chance.
So I said, right, you're going to break the normal record for holding your breath underwater. Hold your breath for as long as you can. Take a deep breath. And whatever you do, don't let go of me, and we'll get you out of here.
So then I took this huge step into this wall of water.
Ducked back out of the cabin, out into the cockpit area. As we came out through the door, I could hear the blip 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 behind me as Norma let go of her air. I was like, oh God.
That's when I let go of Rory. Just panic, yeah, what the hell am I doing here?
She's panicked, she's freaked. She's wrapped herself around this stainless steel framework.
Really, really scary. I didn't think I was going to make it.
I tried pulling her arms off, and eventually I remember hunching up, using my heel to crash into her collarbone up here somewhere.
I let go immediately.
I've got her, and just threw her, like a torpedo if you like. Shoved her down, and she literally just glided under the rail and then started to surface on the other side. I just came up behind her in a bear hug around her tummy and big squeeze, and she sort of coughed and spluttered and was talking.
When we got to the surface, I hadn't swallowed any water, so I had managed to hold my breath and do what I was supposed to do.
Tremendous relief. Rory got her on board on the top of the catamaran. Came over to me and we gave each other a hug. And the first thing that Norma said, he's still got his carpet slippers on. Which was an odd thing to say under the circumstances.
Apparently that's the first thing I said to him. Good heavens, you've still got your slippers on. So I think that's a bit of, ooh, thank goodness I'm safe.
I sat there on the cat for a bit. A couple of minutes, just getting my breath back and calming down, if you like. Thinking, you bloody idiot. That's all I could think was, you bloody idiot. Realised that if I'd ever stopped and thought about it, and not just acted on instinct, I would never would have done it. It was just purely adrenaline. When I think of the worst case scenarios, just unbearable. It's not something you dwell on. You just dwell on the fact that all was good, you know? One of life's little dramas, and move on from it.
What can you say about somebody who saves your wife's life, you know? Don't know. There's no way you can repay him. We managed to get him the Royal Society Humane Award. That was good. And I'm hoped that this gives him some recognition as well, because he deserves it.
I suppose I'd say thank you. You can't, oh dear, sorry. It's just a little word is thank you, and not enough really, but yes, thank you.